Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care. Go to Dutch.com to get vet care that is always there for just $92 a year.
Told a lot of lies about achievement. They called you when they got you to believe it. Thumb and finger held to their foreheads in an L shape. Trapped in a capitalist hellscape. Let's fight back and have some talks about class and the massive cost of the disastrous plots of fascists and Nazis, fat cats and fox. It's 1,000 natural shocks. A Bad with Money podcast.
Hello and welcome to 1,000 Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast. I'm your host, Gabe S. Dunn. And with me today, we have Hunter Dunn, no relation. And can you tell my audience who you are and what you do?
Yes. My name is Hunter Dunn, again, no relation, and I'm with 5051, which stands for 50 States, 50 Protests, 1 Movement. We're a grassroots movement that is organizing mass protests in order to help defend democracy against fascism. I'm their national press coordinator, which means, well, it's why I'm here.
So, how old are you?
22. Going to be 23 literally tomorrow.
Okay, damn. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
So that is a part of what strikes me is that, I wanted to sort of ask about the Gen Z of it all in politics. What drew you to this? Like, why are you so young and, involved?
Because this administration is targeting people that I know and love, and if they are not stopped, they're going to make everyone who is worth less than $1 billion lives significantly worse, if not kill them. So it's really like get involved or risk losing everything and everyone you care about. So for me, it was a pretty easy choice. I've been involved in activism and organizing going back to my senior year in high school, off and on, started during Black Lives Matter, supporting pretty simple diversity and equity initiatives in my school district to just create a more welcoming place for everyone in my community to live in. My high school was one of the ground zeros, one of the first examples of what later became the CRT school board debates. And we're in a pretty purple area, at least where I grew up. It was actually I grew up in Orange County, the county of Reagan. So the area was getting purple, but very historically red. At the end of what we were doing, in the face of school board members being harassed, being followed home by members of hate groups, multiple Capitol insurrectionists showing up. This was right after Jan 6th. Fascist website actually called for a drive-by shooting at our school, so they had to move us online temporarily, the school board meetings, because of a threat. I believe the FBI actually had to get involved at one point. But at the end of it all, the initiatives, both ethnic studies curriculum and the social justice standards, passed unanimously, and they pulled our community, and it ended up being almost 80-20 in favor, which is fantastic for a very politically diverse area. And that happened because we formed a student, teacher, parent, local charity organization, community member coalition across party lines to push for this. And it succeeded. So that was my first foray into activism. And in college, I did a lot of investigative journalism, video editing, talking about a lot of progressive issues from a Christian lens. I went to a Christian conservative college. And so those different life experiences, working in DC, it sort of all just brought together into putting me in the right place so that when this administration took power, I had certain set of skills that I could offer to a movement like 5051 to help take it to the next level. Because this is do or die, not just for our country, but for our communities.
Are your parents involved in stuff? Was that part of your awakening, or you're saying the high school situation sort of radicalized you?
Well, I mean, I was probably radicalized by, watching Sesame Street and VeggieTales, but it sort of gave me the opportunity to put it into practice, right? My parents have always been supportive, which is fantastic. Obviously, they get nervous a lot with the work that I'm doing, which makes sense. They grew up it's Christian to vote Republican. So I'm really proud of watching, like, as they grew and changed, like, hearing from them, like, what they thought when they were growing up versus where they are at now. Um, I remember my dad, when I was in, like, second or third grade, I asked him why people in my school were calling each other gay as an insult, because I just didn't have context. I didn't know what they were talking about. And my dad got me coffee. He sat down, and by the end of it was giving me, like, a really heartfelt discussion of this was right when Caitlyn Jenner came out, before she went far right.
Sure.
But back when
Sure,
this was
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
cool liberatory story for trans rights, right? And he gave, like, this really emotional speech to me about, like, how terrible it would be to be born in the wrong body. Like, imagine if you're an Olympian and, like, you're, like, talking about Caitlyn before she transitioned, but, like, it still wasn't right for you and you feel like this isn't the way you should be made. Like, how hard that'd have to be and how strong you would have to be to admit who you are and make the changes you need to make to live a better life. And, that sort of moral guidance was really important for me as I was growing up. And so was getting the opportunity to study, like, real theology, real scholarship. Because again, we grew up, like, in, like, a borderline megachurch, but my parents always encouraged me to engage with the sources, think critically, don't take it literally, like, investigate it. So those sort of opportunities that my parents gave me definitely led me down the path I'm on now today, even if they freak out sometimes when I tell them I'm going to, like, an anti-ICE demonstration, because obviously they don't want me to get hurt. And sometimes I have been tear gassed and I have been assaulted, but we all have to make sacrifices for this country. We all have to make sacrifices for the people we care about. And they're very supportive, and I'm super appreciative of that.
That's so lovely about your dad. That must have been maybe around the time of gay marriage, too.
Yeah, that was right then, because I was in, like, elementary school when Obergefell versus Hodges, when that decision was written. I remember nearly getting kicked out of my church because I argued with a bunch of pastors in favor of gay marriage when I was, like, in, like, fourth grade. The problem wasn't
Oh
that
my
I was arguing
God.
about it. The problem was that I was winning the argument. So, yeah,
Yeah.
like, I got really into scripture. I learned some, like, ancient Greek and Aramaic to, like, understand the arguments that Paul was making, that the writers of the Gospels were making, and the writers of the Torah were making. And I came to the conclusion that the Bible was actually pretty affirming when you looked at the original text and looked at the original sources in the context of the culture it was in. Because when they're condemning homosexuality, they're normally talking about something else, whether it's pedophilia or they're talking about a very specific sort of economic and sexual interaction that's non-consensual and more like what Fox News does to blonde anchors than it is a loving gay couple. And the Bible also has some pretty wonderful examples of, like, love that definitely crosses from the platonic in one way or another, most notably the centurion and the servant, but also stories like David and Jonathan, Ruth and Naomi. Like, this is a separate podcast and what this is for.
Right?
But
No,
I have,
it's
like,
not. It's not. I grew up extremely Jewish. I was about to say David and Jonathan and Ruth and Naomi.
yeah, I think Ruth and Naomi are gay. David and Jonathan, I don't know, but Saul thought they were gay. And that's what's really important about that. It's so baffling, right? Like, I promise I won't go on a whole hour-long tangent about this, but there's this one moment where Saul, Jonathan, and Jonathan's mother, whose name I forget, were having dinner together. And Saul freaks out about David and Jonathan's friendship, their relationship, and starts calling him weak, starts calling him effeminate, and then turns to the mother and blames her for him being the way that he is, for him being sensitive, for him being
Wow.
feminine in some ways. And if you talk to, like, anyone who grew up, like, queer in the 90s, right? And they had a dad that wasn't affirming and the dad finds out, they always blame the mother for coddling the son and making
I was like,
him
nothing's
gay.
changed.
Right? Like, it's the same. Like, why would you leave that in? If you're the writer of Samuel, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, or 1st and 2nd Chronicles, like, why would you leave that in if you don't want that to be taken away from the story, right? If you don't want that part of the story being in there, why do you mention it? Because obviously they leave things out. They leave out parts of the story that aren't important and don't fit the narrative they're trying to tell. And yet they leave in Saul having, like, a homophobic rant against David's best friend. Fascinating, right? Like, it's just like the text
Yeah.
isn't as simple as conservatives want it to be.
They hate when you are actually religious. They think progressives are like atheist Wiccans, which God bless the atheist Wiccans. But it's real. I found it to be extremely funny when because I grew up very Jewish, and I find it extremely funny when I can like give it back and they're so not expecting that. Because they're like, what is this? This is gonna be. I remember like I've talked about this on the show, but I was in a gay kickball league and we were playing outside, and this guy came up and he was like proselytizing to us. And he was like, well, none of you have God. And I was like, I have God. You're just not going to like the God it is. Like, and then it was just like a whole thing because he was so baffled that like a gay person would just kind of know this stuff. And I think that's a really powerful way to sort of cross. I mean, it is, I'm sure you did annoy them to sort of open minds or cross bipartisan lines in a way.
Oh, it's one of my favorite parts of organizing and being at protests. So like I often do, because I'm a bigger guy, at least compared to most people who protest on our side. So I often get drafted into some kind of security role when I'm not doing like press. Whether it's like marshaling, safety, something like that. Usually my job is messing with counter protesters. I once got on the Citizen app, found out which far-right journalists were recording people and like creeping on people based on triangulating the video footage, and then stood in front of them and kept on moving around so that he couldn't get any footage. He eventually rage quit and went home. It was very funny.
Yes.
But the thing I love the most about that is when there's someone who is like coming at it from a faith-based perspective, and I am genuinely a Christian. I have liberation theology, progressive. Any church between about like 313 and 1900s, except for the Quakers, would like burn me at the stake. But like I do consider myself to be a Christian. So a good example of this is I went to DC for a free DC rally on September 6th. And when I was there was a pastor wearing thirdgender666.com on his like t-shirt. But he had like the priest like frock. I forgot what it's called. Like, like it's like the collar.
Yeah.
And so like I knew he was like a pastor of some kind. He was formerly Episcopalian. He left because they endorsed same-sex marriage, which is wild that he left over that reason. But
right.
Everyone was like arguing with him. People were like yelling at him back and forth. But I went up to him and I was like, I led in with some Bible stuff, talked about different things that I knew that he'd be in favor of while still like making it clear that I disagreed with him on a lot of politics. But then I kind of went into it and started questioning him about his shirt and asking him about what about being like a third gender, non-binary or transgender was somehow anti-biblical, right? Like where it condemned in the Bible. And he starts ranting about like the one verse in Leviticus about people wearing other clothes and a cultic ritual, which is not representative to today. But I start going in with him about the 3 types of eunuchs that Jesus says gets into heaven, right? Because he refers to natural born eunuchs, he refers to people who are mated by others, and people who make themselves it for God. And he's the 3rd type, right? Because he took a vow of celibacy as part of his, like, you don't have to do that if you're Episcopalian, but he did. And then the other 2 refer to either people who were forced into a role by the Roman elites of the day. And the final option, natural born eunuch, is in the Talmud and actually refers to gender and sexual minorities. It doesn't refer to someone who is born unable. It generally refers to someone who is a man who is not attracted to women. And
right.
The Bible's incredibly clear that those people are also welcome into heaven and that they don't have to maintain a straight lifestyle to get there. It says like, like you should get married if you're not one of these 3 things. If you're one of these 3 things, you should not get married to a woman. Like, because God didn't have that in store for you, which is a pretty clear endorsement of there being a non-heterosexual lifestyle allowed for in the Christian worldview. And when I sort of presented him with that, he kind of started crying.
What?
People can't handle pushback on this. Someone hated Calvinists, and I this was one I was messing with because his whole thing was like, you need to save your soul so you don't go to hell. And he's like, if you're a feminist, you're going to hell. If you have an abortion, you're going to hell. If you're gay, you're going to hell. You know those people, right? And I talked him into, because he believed that like if a child died, the child went to heaven because they hadn't sinned yet, which is, to be fair, not the worst belief I've heard. That's better than like Calvinism where you're preordained to go to hell. And he was convinced, and I managed to convince him that the most moral thing to do would to be have an abortion because you'd be ensuring that child went to heaven.
Oh my God.
I was completely
And
trolling
you go
him,
to hell,
and
but you know what? You sacrificed for your child. Oh my God.
that was literally the argument. It's like, like Jesus sacrificed his life for us. But isn't it a greater sacrifice to
Oh my
sacrifice your shot
God.
at going to heaven for someone else? So therefore, aren't abortion doctors the most Christ-like person in existence? Because they are sacrificing their
Oh my
immortal souls so that other
God.
people can go to heaven. And like I've ran that gambit multiple times. My argument isn't that that's what I'm endorsing. The argument is that they misunderstand Christianity, because it's not about getting into
Yeah.
heaven. It's about bringing the teachings of loving your neighbor, the teachings of like the red letters of Jesus into the world around you, which I would argue looks much more socialist and much more borderline anarchist than it looks capitalist or fascist.
Right. That's the thing that people say, where it's like the people in the mega churches would hate actual Jesus.
Yes. They God, yeah, they would not love a refugee. They wouldn't love someone who is telling them that it's easier to put a camel or sturdy rope through an eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. That's not very Republican of Jesus.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I mean, that's a thing that I think they're not expecting. And being the unexpected is pretty good for it's not even reaching across the aisle, but just making people think, or making them more steadfast in their beliefs. I don't know. I can't figure it out. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. I need the right person with the right background who can move our business forward. If I wanted candidates who match what I'm looking for, I'd trust Indeed-sponsored jobs. I actually found my job on Indeed, and it was so easy to search through what I wanted to do and my skills and find the right place that was looking for exactly what I could offer. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post even seen on other sites. Give your job the best chance to be seen with Indeed-sponsored jobs. They help you stand out and hire quality candidates who can drive the results you need. Sponsored jobs boost your posts for quality candidates so you can reach the exact people you want faster. And it makes a big difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs, because you reach a bigger pool of quality candidates. Join the 1.6 million companies that sponsor their jobs with Indeed. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. Now with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/badwithmoney. Just go to Indeed.com/badwithmoney right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/badwithmoney. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care. Go to Dutch.com to get vet care that is always there for just $92 a year.
There's like a podcast that I sometimes come across called The Necessary Conversation, and it's this author. Do you know this one?
Yeah, I'm familiar. I too am addicted to my phone, so yes, I'm aware.
The parents, it's this 2 siblings, and they interview their MAGA parents all the time. And the parents just simply go no. Like, they'll be like, oh, well, I wrote about this where there was one where the sister was like, a child who was a U.S. citizen was taken and is detained. And the parents are like, well, they're illegal. And they were like, we just said the child is born in Louisiana. Like, that child is not illegal. And then the dad was like, well, they're illegal. Like, it's so hard to, like, there's nothing to grasp onto. It's wild.
Yeah, I think there's some virtue to that podcast. because it does seem like the mom's shifting a little bit, where the dad, I can't tell if he's trolling or if he's like, kind of reminds me of like, my grandfather wasn't MAGA, so that's not the comparison I'm making, but like when my grandfather started to suffer from dementia, like the way that this guy asserts himself
Truly.
reminds me of like the beginnings of senility.
People in the comments are always like, is your dad have a brain tumor?
He kind of like, I don't want to be rude, but like,
Does he?
it's a nicer assumption to assume the person needs help than to assume that he's just evil, right?
Yeah.
I also think the necessary conversation shows that there is a way to persuade, but it's not necessarily the way that his family is trying to do it with him. Like, I think you kind of have to meet people where they're at more, right? Like, I think I saw a TikTok about this, and I tried it, and it worked, which was when talking about the genocide in Gaza, when talking about Israel-Palestine, starting the conversation in a way that aligns with a more conservative worldview, which was like, I told them, I hate that the U.S. is using money to fund the persecution of Christians in Jesus's birthplace and in Bethlehem. In Bethlehem and in Nazareth.
Yep.
The U.S. is funding atrocities against Christians who live where Jesus was born and where he was raised. Because Bethlehem's in Gaza. It's in Palestine.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that angle worked. And there's a lot of other angles too. Like, I use the term billionaire elites, which is more actually me messaging to liberals and to conservatives, but it's to cross the boundary between there are specific bad people who are supporting Trump to there is a system of oppression that is supporting the rise of fascism in this country, which is a more leftist analysis compared to a more liberal analysis of Peter Thiel bad, Trump bad. And sort of trying to bridge the gap, right? Like meeting people where they're at and using things that they understand, not lying to them, but just presenting things in a way that they understand to help bring them over to the side of what I believe is the correct thing, right? Like, you gotta meet people where they're at to get them to come where you want them to be. To get them to come over to your side, you have to try to convince them. You know, not try to convince people that are on your tribe, on your side. You got to reach out to the people who aren't. Because I think most of those people do have a fundamentally good part of them. It's just been suppressed or propagandized or, in some cases, abused out of them. There's tons of different reasons why people believe what they believe. But with most people, you can reach them if you run the right dialogue tree, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there are the people in the comments that say, oh, well, boohoo, you got what you voted for. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really gonna help.
It's so tempting, right?
Is this your interest in, like, being press specifically? Is that sort of something how did you come to that?
Well, the real answer is kind of disappointing. It's when the first 50-51 protests were being organized, originally it was going to be 51 in each capital across the country, but pretty quickly people realized some states like California are too big, so why don't we do major cities? So I was looking for one near me, found Los Angeles, reached out to the 3 people organizing it, and offered my help, saying I've done some press experience, I have some policy experience, I've volunteered for campaigns and volunteered for community efforts before. I'm willing to do whatever you want. Just tell me what you need me to do, and then I'll do it. And they're like, well, we need help with press. No one else really wants to do it. And I'm like, okay. I was a little sad because I want to do policy, but, we can't always get what we want. So I started doing press, did a pretty decent job of both answering questions and also helping find people who could speak to different stories that were really important to highlight at these demonstrations. Did some comedy podcasts in LA because Hollywood kept on not messing up. And eventually other 50-51 chapters, people who were volunteering on the national level, started asking for my help. And now here I am.
Can you talk more about 50-51 and what you're talking about? It started with, 3 people. But can you talk more about the organization and how it got started and, give me the spiel?
Yeah. I mean, I was just talking about 50-51 SoCal. It's the Los Angeles chapter. I know 50-51 started on social media. I'm pretty sure it was on Reddit. People were looking for some meaningful resistance against the Trump regime when the second administration was sworn in. but couldn't find it from politicians. So everyday Americans were like, well, let's just do it ourselves. People were bouncing around different ideas. And then the one that sort of won out, the one that went the most viral, was what if we had 50 protests, one in each state capital at the same time on the same day with the same message, which was for democracy against executive overreach. Now, things have shifted pretty quickly. It's more against fascism than just executive overreach. It went from a few hundred people in Los Angeles and like 20 to 50,000 people around the country on a first day protest on February 5th to 7 million people, over 7 million people as part of a large coalition on October 18th for the second national No Kings National Day of Action. So obviously there's been a lot of growth since then, but it's just started out really small and it's continued to maintain this kind of complicated, decentralized web of chapters and organizations around the country that are all moving towards one goal, which is to reclaim our country from this administration and replace it with a democracy that puts people before profits.
What do you say? Because there's kind of a line, at least for me being in the weeds in Los Angeles, there's kind of this line between 5051 and the like more leftist community. And I'm just curious about what do you guys think about this kind of pushback, or like, you hear people being very dismissive of 5051, or you know what I mean? Like there's like I don't know if it's just a really deep-seated, reasonable distrust of organizations and groups, or this idea that it's going to be similar to sort of a neoliberal, like, we're just going to get back to democracy stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean, some of those concerns totally make sense, right? You see a new organization on the block, you want to make sure it's legit, right? You want to make sure it's not like a cult or something. Um, sort of my running
Yeah.
joke is that if you're not a cult, I support you. But some groups don't even pass that bar. And I think that's a pretty low bar, but nonetheless, right? Some of that's us being new. Some of that is that we're a really, really, really big tent, right? Like at our first No Kings March, I saw a guy wearing carrying a Gadsden flag standing next to a PSL member with a Kafia on Free Palestine flag, and the two of them were helping each other like marshal people across the street, trying to help some people who were in wheelchairs and various accessibility stuff, helping them get across during the march. And that kind of is what 5051 is to me. It's this really, really broad tent, which is that if you're an anti-fascist, right? If you're pro-democracy, anti-fascism, and you're nonviolent, you're welcome. And that's not necessarily to say that like that's the right way to protest or the right way to go about that. It's just that's our mission, right? We are peacefully protesting for democracy against fascism. But when we say for democracy, we don't mean the neoliberal Hillary Clinton conception of democracy, where freedom is freedom to choose between a million TV channels that all cost more than your house does. We mean an actually free country that provides the basic floor of negative and positive freedoms that not only can we provide because we are the so-called wealthiest country ever, but that is necessary for human flourishing, right? So things like repealing Citizens United to help undo some of the insane political polarization and also reduce corruption. Universal healthcare, because no one should be going bankrupt or dying because they can't afford a life-saving treatment. Or, I would argue, things like universal basic income, repealing the Taft-Hartley Act to allow for more unionization. Building affordable housing, primarily through social housing, but also through cutting through meaningless municipal regulations that were put in by old white NIMBYs, right? Like there's a very large, there's a lot of changes we need to make to this country once we get the opportunity to. But step one is removing this regime and replacing it with actual, I'm just going to say progressives. Personally, I mean leftists, but I understand that there's going to have to be a united front, not just to remove Donald Trump from office, but also to make the changes we need to make so we don't go back to the neoliberal status quo that just gives us another Trump in 10 years that's younger, more charismatic, and more of a Nazi. On the other hand, right, I think that there's 2 to 3 things in LA that we do get some pushback on, and I think it's good to talk about them, right? One of them is claims that we're Zionist. The answer to that is no, we're not. We're pro-Palestine. We want an end to the genocide. we believe in the self-determination rights of all people, whether we're talking about the genocide in Gaza, whether we're talking about the Darfur genocide, whether we're talking about one of the thousands of historical genocides, more like hundreds, one of the hundreds of historical genocides, whether we're talking about a more localized genocide, which is what Russia is doing to Ukraine in the Kherson region with the human safari. We oppose all forms of genocide. We're especially focused on what's happening here with Donald Trump's attempts to remove immigrants and go after LGBTQ plus people, which would turn into a genocide if they get their way. But for a lot of us, me included, part of the reason we want to fight our fascists is so that we can help other countries, other peoples around the world fight theirs. There's an axis of evil, an international council of nationalists where Netanyahu, Putin, Trump, Bolsonaro, Le Pen, whoever the leader of the AfD is at this point, Orban and more, are working together to overthrow democracy, whether it's social democracy or another form of government, and replace it with a fascist illiberal state. And we're trying to fight back against all of those so that every person fairly represented and has a shot at a better life rather than getting bombed by US-funded missiles. The other stuff that I think comes up a lot is like questions about like permitting or targeted demonstrations, right? And we at 5051 SoCal don't permit. We haven't permitted since April. We did it in the beginning of April, but after speaking with community leaders, people who've been doing the organizing work for a long time, and after watching how the LAPD used that information to harm marginalized protesters and vendors, including my main man, Eric from Public Statement Apparel, who's a wonderful human being, we're actually working on a rally with him on 12/13 against LAPD police brutality. Some of our members and some of our mutual friends are currently, it sounds like, still at an LA City Council meeting protesting against that police brutality right now as we're recording this. But since then, we've decided not to permit because, A, you shouldn't have to pay to exercise your First Amendment right to protest, and B, permitting in Los Angeles and in most places around the country gives the police more information that they can and will use, and we've seen them use, against marginalized communities and marginalized protesters. And against protesters in general. Yeah. Again, like I got tear gas on the first day of the LA occupation, you know, like the LAPD is not on our side in any way, shape, or form. So we're not going to permit for protests because that, basically. So that's another common misconception.
Yeah, I think there's an idea that a lot of these protests that are permitted are not actual civil disobedience. Like, oh, this isn't a protest, this is a parade. This isn't a protest, this is like a rally. And, you know, I understand the distinction. I am also frustrated by how large No Kings is and how little follow-up there is. You know, I was going to ask you too, like, people were annoyed because there's like an RSVP. There was like an RSVP going around.
Oh, God. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me get to that. Okay. You do not have to register to protest. Whoever's telling you that is lying to you. Even Leah, one of the two leaders of Indivisible, made a video telling you don't need to. So Mobilize was made for volunteering for progressive political candidates, right? Like that's the purpose of the site. So it has RSVPs on it so people can RSVP for like a shift to volunteer for a political candidate, which is a normal and good thing to do. But the problem is it has RSVPs for everything. And I know that there's some value there. Like the idea is like, if you give us your email, we can email you about follow-up actions. Don't give them your email. Make a burner.
Have some idea of how many people are coming.
Yeah. I mean, look, if people want to like email the people who are organizing the protest, if people want to get update emails, right? That's great. Use a burner. Don't use your real identity. I would prefer you don't. I'm asking you not to use your real email or real identity.
Proton. Use Proton.
A burner. Use a Proton. Exactly. Don't trust that CEO at all. But, they can't figure out whose it was. I have like 5 fake Proton emails. Use one of those. Hell, you can use one of mine. Just DM me. I'll give you the password. If you just want to. But like, you don't have to register. You don't have to RSVP. If you want to, don't use your actual email. That's basically my take on it. And that's the take that 5051 in general has. Obviously, there's 7 million people part of No King, so everyone's going to have their own takes. But if you're like a leftist, I encourage you to come. I encourage you to bring your zines, to talk to people on the ground, because you underestimate how much someone who you may think as like neoliberal, but maybe they're wearing a pink hat, how much they actually agree with you and how much they would benefit from you taking the opportunity to give them some materials that they can use to educate and radicalize themselves. Because we're seeing a new wave of Democratic membership, right? We're seeing people who are joining WFP or DSA en masse. We're seeing people who are more and more becoming extremely frustrated that the Democratic Party, at least the Democratic leadership, shows literally zero spine. They are losing to complete and utter morons on the daily, right? And they're screaming about how there's dogs can't play basketball. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is Air Bud dunking on us constantly, but he's got the IQ of the dog from Air Bud. So it actually wouldn't be that hard to beat him. We would just have to grow his spine as a collective opposition, right? So I'm looking to work with anyone who is trying to make meaningful change. I'm much more on the left than many other members of, say, the No Kings Coalition, which is why I'm always pushing them to do more. There's this great thing called the No Kings Alliance, which every week comes out with new ways to resist, usually encouraging economic pressure campaigns, strikes, or mutual aid, which I love to see. Sometimes they encourage civil disobedience. Actually, Indivisible, which is very liberal coded for very obvious reasons, trained people in civil disobedience over the summer. There's a lot of fair critiques of that organization. There's a lot of fair critiques of 5051. But those are the kind of efforts that we want to encourage, at least I believe. So when I work with those organizations, I try to push that to the forefront. I try to encourage more civil disobedience, more mutual aid, making those kinds of differences. You don't want to know how hard it was to convince the No Kings Coalition that it's fine that LA isn't permitted. But we were able to do it. And now more No Kings protests don't have permits. When we talk about making progress as a country and as a nation, we also have to make progress as a resistance movement. Because right now, people see Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer as the leader of those resistance movements. And not only do we need to convince them to stop listening to them, we have to remove them from leadership and replace them with someone better. I think Hakeem can be pressured more than Chuck Schumer can. Good luck to Chiase. I'm rooting for you. But I think Schumer's going to be easier to remove and replace.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was curious, like you mentioned strikes or economic pressure. What are some of the ideas? What are the civil disobedience? It doesn't even have to be representing 5051. I've grown pretty tired of we're going to win or we're going to hold them accountable because I don't know what the fuck that means. And even like meeting with different candidates for different things lately, I've been disappointed because they'll say an idea and then I'm like not trying to be rude. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. Either I go like, oh, what are the steps of how that would work? Or I go, oh, that's interesting. Well, wouldn't this happen and wouldn't this happen? Like I'm coming up with stuff. And they're like, oh, yeah, we haven't really like worked it out yet. And I'm like, I keep saying I'm one guy in a kitchen. How am I? Like I have questions. And so I've just felt like there's been a lack of coherent specifics.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's how I conceive of things, so that helps at all. You've probably heard that the resistance isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. Yeah, marathon, not a sprint. It's the more common phrase now that I think about it. I don't think that's correct. I think it's a relay race, right? Like we have these mass mobilizations, right? We have like these No Kings style protests where you get millions of people together across the country, across the world, kicked off in South Korea on the same day with the same message, which is we, the American people, do not consent to Donald Trump's destroying of our country and throwing our neighbors into concentration camps. But that's just one part of the resistance, right? And the goals of those are showing solidarity, but more importantly, recruitment and education. Bringing people, activating people who haven't protested before, bringing them all together, and then giving longstanding organizations on the left the opportunity to meet with people on the ground who are looking for ways to get involved, pushing them to join them, getting them involved in mutual aid, anti-ICE patrols, community defense groups, direct actions like Tesla and Fox takedowns, pillar erosion, mutual aid, mutual aid, mutual aid, mutual aid. Getting people involved in those groups are doing the work every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year. Whether it's 5051, whether it's someone like Valley Defensa or DSA or other
Mhm.
organizations that I probably shouldn't even mention because some groups are completely unknown, don't have a social media presence
Offline,
because you can
yeah,
only meet them
offline.
on the ground. Exactly. Offline, that's the right term.
Mhm.
Getting people involved in those. And then those actions that happen over the next weeks and months do much more than just one day of No Kings could ever do. But then
Yeah.
building momentum through getting people involved, doing more targeted demonstrations, protesting against LAPD brutality, protesting for Palestine, protesting bird-dogging congressional congresspeople. And then that feeds back into the mass mobilizations, which feeds into the next wave of recruitment, building momentum, and building that protesting muscle, which the U.S. so sorely lacks, so that when the
Yeah.
time comes, when the necessary hour comes, we can do what we need to do to take our country back. Our movement is about building the momentum to take our country back. And I think this is just my guess that in 2028 or 2029, there's going to be this one definitive moment where they try to rig the election or Trump tries to not leave or whoever comes after him. And we're going to have to shut down the country until they are forced out, until the pillars of power turn against this regime and allow for a new wave of leadership to take over. And that new wave needs to not be Chuck Schumer. I see our role as getting people activated, getting them into the streets, and connecting them with groups that are doing the work on a consistent basis. 5051, a lot of 5051 chapters around the country, including my own, do that work as well. But we can't be everything for everyone. And if people are interested in getting involved with specific actions or specific causes that are part of the anti-Trump tapestry, we want to connect them with those groups. And
Mhm.
even if that's a really tough sell for some people who are more liberal,
Mhm.
there's a lot of room to persuade, right? We don't have to just persuade conservatives to stop being conservative. We kind of have to bring people over who are currently in the vote blue no matter who, unless it's Mamdani mindset, and help bring them over into
Yeah.
understanding the way that the United States is built on a set of original sins which contribute to systems of
Mhm.
oppression that are keeping everyone down, especially marginalized communities, but everyone who isn't worth 1 billion USD. And getting people to realize that and getting people to take action against that.
I think a lot of what's been good on my end is it's not left or right. Like, this is a class war.
Yep.
And I think that's been really helpful instead of being like, look, we're leftists getting liberals, we're getting conservatives. Like, how do we convince MAGA? I think if just building this umbrella of like, this is a class war. Like, we are all, it doesn't matter. We're all poor and they're rich. And we gotta just go from that. And I think that's been like what you were saying billionaire elites, I think is like a really good way to come at it.
Yeah, it's not left versus right, it's top versus
Yeah.
bottom. Talking about working families, love working
Mhm.
families party. That messaging is 100% what we need to be going for. Talking about solidarity,
Right.
talking about like working people, talking about right now like the Starbucks strikes happening, right? And talking to people very
Mhm.
basically like the Brennan Lee Mulligan bit of if you value getting coffee in the morning and you like that someone makes coffee for you, if you think that's a necessary service, then either you think that the people who make that coffee for you deserve to live a fulfilling life and deserve to be paid a fair wage so that they can live that life, so that they can flourish, because what they're doing is more valuable than probably what you do, or you're a bad person, right? Like talking about it in ways that people understand
Yeah.
and bringing people over, because if you just say,
Mhm.
woo socialism, woo communism, they're going to freak out, right? Like, but
Mhm.
the median position in America right now is to abolish ICE as soon as we can. A lot of people have gotten radicalized by this.
Interesting.
A lot of people, and that's not me saying that it's a good thing. I think that it's horrifying what's happening in this country, and I think it would have been better if we could have
Yeah.
avoided it in the first place. But now that we're
Right.
here, now that the worst excesses of our systems have been laid bare
Mhm.
for the American people to see, we have an opportunity to use that to bring people over to our side that might never have listened to us in the first place. We can make we got to make lemonade out of the lemons, but it's bad that the lemons are here in the first place.
Yeah, just to show like, hey, the world can be better. Did you know that you could? My big thing is when people comment and they say, well, this is just how it is, or blah, blah, blah. My like very woo woo reply that I do now is I go, I hope that you become a person who can dream bigger than what has been presented to you. And I want that for you, and I will fight for you with that, even if you don't want me to. And I hope that you see the benefits of it one day. God bless.
Yeah. I mean, like there's that, right? Like there's different ways of doing it where it's like trying to just show the solidarity, show that like you're fighting for a better world for them, even if they disagree with you politically, even if they think what you're doing is ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you can show them that you genuinely have their best interest at heart, that can go a long way to winning someone over.
Mm-hmm. And what's being brought to light, it's not a good thing, but it was going on in the dark and now it's in the light. And what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. I mean, it's much worse than it was before, but also it was happening before. Like, ICE didn't just appear this year. They were already, doing this. They were definitely less secret police, less Nazi than they are now. But it was never a good program. It was never a good system. Even before we had ICE, we had previous iterations of this, like, immigration's custom enforcement job that since the dawn of us having a service like that in this country has been oppressing marginalized people, has been breaking international human rights law.
Well, what a joy. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you, more about you, more about 5051 if you so wish to be found?
First off, I'm going to start with, if you're in Los Angeles, we have an upcoming action on December 13th. It is a rally against LAPD brutality. I know we talked about rallies derisively earlier, but it's going to be a little bit more than that. I don't know how many details I can share yet, but it's going to have some very clear calls to action, very clear demands.
Rallies are fine. Parades are fine. Relax,
hey, a rally is just the start of a march, okay? Because, like, you gotta, like, rally just means bringing people together. The term rally just means to rally at a location. There's no real, I don't think there's any content to that.
Relax,
protests
everybody.
Shouldn't be parades, though. I agree with that one. What I can say is it's called Unaccountable. It's happening December 13th at 12 p.m. We're meeting at Wilshire, and we're going to eventually be heading to the Getty House to present a list of demands addressing how the Los Angeles Police Department has consistently attacked marginalized communities and also recently protesters. I was there on October 18th when, after the second No Kings protest, people had a follow-up protest demonstration at the MDC, and an LAPD officer got out of his car, pointed at a protest medic, got back in his car, accelerated, and ran him over.
I was there. I was there.
I was standing next to Elon Musk's daughter when it happened.
Oh, she's the best.
She's fantastic. She's the one who got national attention on that, by the way. She's the one who broke the story, which was great of her to do.
She was wearing a mask, but her hair is so long. I was like, we all know who you are.
Yeah, we all know who. I mean, she posted about it, okay? Like, her and I actually had a conversation about, like, protest safety, whether I was a good idea to post photos of a protest. And I'm like, okay, first off, No King's not that kind of protest. But also, like, you're a public figure. People know you're anti-Trump, right? Like, there's real value to encouraging other people to join these demonstrations, especially I would argue, the really more important ones where you're standing up against ICE and against police brutality, right? Like, the ones that have a very clear, direct impact on your community. So, yeah, we're doing something like that on the 13th. It's going to be hopefully pretty fantastic. And Mayor Karen Bass, we are going to be holding you accountable. And I know you don't like that word accountability, but I mean, like, either these demands are going to be listened to and there's going to be some serious changes made,
voted out,
serious reforms by the city council and by the mayor to how the LAPD functions, including ideally removing the current police chief, who is terrible. And
McDonald, baby, he's got to go. He sucks. I've been to the police commissioner meeting and he is the worst.
They're so terrible. I mean, I don't know. City council's pretty bad too. Remember, like, when they artificially ended quorum in the middle of a speech? Like,
they turned the lights out on us.
They did. I'm going to be honest. I do not want to self-aggrandize at all here, but I went up there and I was like, as a member of 5051, we organized the No King stuff. I am calling for the immediate removal of the police chief. And, like, the way that they acted with relief when they saw that I was a No Kings organizer and then immediately started freaking out when I started calling for the same thing all the people that they saw as radical leftists were calling for,
Yeah.
that was when they started whispering to end the quorum, because I think they realized that there was no coming back after this, because they ended right after
Stupid.
my speech.
Yeah. And all they did was you took that video of who's on Instagram as Petra Escobar
Petra's
giving a
great.
giving a really great speech with the lights turned off on us. All you're doing is creating incredible optics. Anyway, that's so cynical to say, but
These are stupid people. These are
they're
not
stupid.
competent people. That's what's so
I
frustrating
know.
about this,
I
right? Is that like the people in
know.
charge are idiot nepo babies, and they are destroying our country both on purpose and on accident, and we can't beat them for some reason.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I'm with you. Well, come to the rally, guys.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit more than just a rally, let's put it that way. Anyways, if you want to
Sorry,
find...
I said rally. I know the secret. Okay, come to the rally and there's secrets.
Yeah, there's
Ooh,
fun. There will be
exciting. There's secrets.
So, this isn't... There's some hot sauce. That's all I'm gonna say. There's some
Yes.
spice. Anyways, if you want to find info about 5051 SoCal, you can go to our Instagram, which is just 5051 SoCal. Go to our website, and I believe it's wowwow.5051socal.org. You could do /demands, then you can actually see our list of demands that we are going to be presenting. That's a little
Cool.
sneak preview for you guys, exclusive for Gabe's podcast here. For me, I'm Hunter Isn't Done, but I want to take the opportunity to highlight a couple organizations like Jail Support LA, ANERA, that we've been supporting over the past couple of months at our rallies, demonstrations, and mutual aid events. I would love it. I know a lot of people ask, like, where to donate for 5051. Okay, if you're like the wife of a billionaire and you're divorced and you have a lot of money, like, sure, we'll take some. But like, otherwise, I would rather you prioritize the people that are doing the most important work, like jail support, people
Yeah.
who are standing up for the genocide in Gaza and providing mutual aid, providing relief there, like the, PCRF. Am I saying that right? Palestinian Children's
I
Relief
think
Fund.
so. Yeah.
Yes. Groups are supporting other oppressed people in other countries like Ukraine, South Sudan, the Congo, here in the U.S. with both immigration and with the attacks on LGBTQ plus people, especially what's happening at Oklahoma University right now, which is baffling, one of the worst essays I've ever read. Please support those organizations and the groups putting in that work first, right? 5051's a leftist temp agency. We're here to help bring all those groups together. So if I can direct you to those organizations first, and if you still want to help us after, fantastic, but please prioritize those organizations first. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, thank you, Hunter. I appreciate it. 1,000 Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast, is a production of Noted Bisexual, produced by Melisa D. Monts and Diamond MPrint Productions, edited by Diane Kang, post-production sound by Coco Lorenz, and music by Zach Sherwin as sung by Sam Barbera. Thank you, love you, bye!
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care. Go to Dutch.com to get vet care that is always there for just $92 a year.